This is Bylines Network live streaming with a gathering of budding journalists, student writers who have entered an article into our inaugural Bylines Network Will Hutton Student Prize, named after Will, who is here with us. Esteemed journalist, commentator, economist, president of the Academy of Social Sciences, and many, many other things. A fantastic opportunity to recognise the 30 or so students who are placed with Bylines Network every year in one of our 10 publications across the UK nations and regions, who generally whether they're undergraduates or postgraduates, will generally write 3 articles over the course of the year.
I enjoyed all 7 pieces, very varied. Here I am towards the end of my career, and I'm very keen to hand the baton on to people who are going to run with it in the decades ahead. And it's great to have an opportunity to do that. And I think there's some people, all the writers actually, all the finalists, all 7 of them, one way or another, more than capable of doing that. So that gladdened my heart.
So the first of the 7 was Maysara Al-Khalaf, who wrote a piece in Northeast Bylines about the Saidnaya prison in Damascus. The second of those was Henry Snowball, who is with us, who will tell us about their piece shortly. Third of those was Jack, who is also with us and will tell us about their piece. The fourth was Joel Boyd, who wrote a piece in West England Bylines about the looming shadow of Donald Trump over the 2026 World Cup, which is very interesting. So those are all our postgraduate shortlisted entrants. Our undergraduates, there were 3 of those. Rose Zhu, who is not with us today, wrote a really fascinating and interesting piece that we consider very closely. Rudy, who is with us, who will talk about their piece, and Gabriel, who is with us, who will talk about their piece.
My name is Gabriel. I'm a student at Newcastle University, and I'm an international student. I come from Ecuador in South America. And as for my piece, it's called How Hard is Life for Asylum Seekers in the UK. I had the opportunity to be able to attend a photographic exhibition at the Baltic Museum, where I was able to interview the photographer in charge of the exhibition. And her name is Nadia, and she was able to give me a different understanding of how asylum seekers and their life is in the UK and the struggles they go through. And of course, through an artistic lens, since it was a photographic exhibition, I was someone that had no prior experience or knowledge of anything to do with asylum seekers in the UK, and it was a very moving and interesting experience to be able to interview her. So I wrote an article on it, and instead of me mainly just putting my own words in it, I mainly just let the people that were interviewed as part of the exhibition do the talking mainly, and just trying to express their feelings and their words and their life, I guess, to a greater audience.
Vivid writing, and actually really important to get this out there, given what's going on in Britain at the moment. I don't know when you did the piece, but I'm guessing it would have been before the summer. Yeah, I mean, come on, good piece.
Yeah, and I should say, Rose, who's sent apologies for tonight's piece, was also, which was in Yorkshire Bylines, was also one that drew on a book, in that case, looking at refugee experience and the identity of Britain as well. So it's obviously a really important theme, even before this summer's events, for the students that were writing for our publications and have been shortlisted for this competition. Why don't we hear then from the other undergraduates on the call? Rudy, and again, I'm not going to express any bias, but it might be because of your piece that I took my son all the way to Glasgow to see a gig with the Sex Pistols.
It was a fantastic gig. It was amazing. I saw them a couple of weeks ago, actually, at Beautiful Days Festival, which is run by the Levellers down in Devon. And they just never disappointed. I was really chuffed that they came back together with Frank Carter. I mean, I've admired him for a long time. He's a great tattooist. I also liked his band, The Rattlesnakes. So he's cracking in the first place. If there was anyone to replace Johnny Rotten, it would be Frank Carter. And obviously, I don't know, it kind of took away from my enjoyment of Sex Pistols when Johnny Rotten started just splurging racism on the internet. I was like, I don't know, I'm struggling to separate the art from the artist here. But then Frank Carter came in, very sound man, so I can then enjoy the music again without kind of worrying that the creator of it has become a bit of a nutter. But the gig itself, I mean, it was so chaotic. It was crazy. All these not old men. That's offensive to the kind of. They weren't old. They were just, I don't know, probably in their 60s, really, which I thought was wild to be in a mosh pit. They were just absolutely off their nut. And it was great to see. It was like kind of, I don't know, life affirming in a sense, just to be able to see Sex Pistols, a band that I've admired for a long time, a band that I never thought I'd be able to see because obviously of my age and when they broke up originally. So yeah, it was
I'm just going
amazing.
to quote verbatim from Rudy's biography for this, not the one on the Bylines website. He said, "Tell us a bit about yourself." He wrote, "I'm a woke punk snowflake, terrified of what the world is becoming. Journalism, censored though it may be, seems amongst the few swords left in the fight against the right-wing ideologies."
You really convey what it was like to be there, and the smells of the mosh pit. Uh, um, but I also liked the use of the video clips. I thought they were that's I mean, um, the way journalism is going in the next 5 years, well, it's already gone there actually. I mean, but pieces kind of need that, I think, increasingly.
I'm just going to give you a literally live update. Came in about 60 seconds ago from my Sarah, who's not able to join us, who says, was hoping to attend, but unfortunately is locked down in other events in Syria right now with a connection that is not working fully. So that's why our journalist reporting from the horrors of the prison in that country is not able to join us tonight. And Joel, who isn't able to join us either to talk about the World Cup article, but Joel's a student at University of West England, an aspiring sports journalist, and is interested in the things that are underrepresented and underwritten about in terms of sports. That's where that article came from. But we do have Jack with us.
I've just finished my journalism master's course at Sheffield University, and the piece that I submitted for this award is something that's quite close to my heart, really. I'm from Yorkshire. I live in Rotherham at the moment. I've been working for the Barnsley Chronicle for a lot over the summer, and my article was about the 40th anniversary of the end of the miners' strike, which of course is very, very big and still sort of looms over quite a lot of the area that I grew up in. I live quite close to a former colliery that's now the site of a Sunday League football club that I played at for quite a while when I was younger. So, it's something that's always been quite close to me. And I wanted to write something about it. And when I was at uni, I got the chance to write a lot of long form journalism. And I wanted to write a long form piece on the miners' strike and sort of how it has affected people and how it still does now, but also how some people have been able to, move on from it and regenerate areas. And I think if you look at the piece, it's quite nicely split to look at the effects that are still felt now and how we've regenerated areas in Yorkshire. And because I think a lot of people outside Yorkshire, when they think of coal mining, they think of places like Barnsley and think of films like Kes, and it's quite I don't want to say depressing view, but it's one that's quite of a bygone age, coal mining, I think. So it's nice to see that it's still represents a lot of people, and people have been able to use former coalfield sites for great things like Manders Lake, which is mentioned quite a lot in my piece. And it was a great pleasure to be able to share some work that I'd done at university and talk through people with it. And I made changes with my lecturers to the original piece, and it was just a really nice pleasure to be able to see some writing that I've done be published by someone like Yorkshire Bylines.
One of Britain's tech founders who's made a lot of money, who was kind of mourning the fact that in the 1980s, one of the legacies of the miners' strike and deindustrialization is actually the shape of the FTSE 100. In that, when he was a young man, a lot of engineering companies, a lot of heavy industrial stocks and now there are none. And actually, the kind of scarring he was talking about the scarring of the miners' strike on the structure of the British stock market. Which, I mean, I've never. And then you're talking about the scarring kind of on the ground, and I was struck at the kind of the way that it's those events and that decade kind of have such a lasting impact on Britain. It's also, of course, the miners' strike is when I made my name. Actually, I was working on Newsnight as economics editor, and actually it was obvious to me that there were pinch points, more than pinch points. There were really weak points, kind of in the defensive shield that had been set up by the Thatcher government, and that actually, some of there was the real danger actually stocks of coal running out in some for some power stations. And so it kind of brought back those days for me reading that article.
So moving on to our last person who's on the call with us, which is Henry.
My article about Cirencester Park, which it feels quite compared to other articles I've written, or compared to other articles that everyone else here has written, it often seems like quite a trivial small thing. It was a controversy over access to a park, and that was exactly kind of the point I was trying to make in the article, is how can you connect a seemingly trivial argument about a park that seems like something from Hot Fuzz? How can you communicate that into an analysis of class in the UK? So that was my kind of, I always wanted to provide a methodology for people reading the article to realize, well, here's the way that when we look at whatever issue you might come across in day-to-day life, whether that is an international conflict or a small issue about land access, tracing, cause and effect, how history develops over time, how the economics develops over time, and essentially a way to conduct modern analysis by looking at history and class, and whether that intersects with race, gender, sexuality, and providing this sort of method of cause and effect. I know that doesn't sound much like the actual content of the article, but that's the really broad idea I was trying to get across, that kind of stemmed from. So just some really quick context I just finished my master's, was taking a year out before doing the PhD that I'm now currently doing. And in that year, I got involved a bit with Right to Roam in the area within this issue. And it kind of stemmed from all these just day-to-day conversations with people who were campaigning and really passionate, but didn't quite have the language maybe to communicate what actually the issue was. And were kind of just almost begging the Bathursts of the people that own the land who were cutting it off, oh, please let us go in your garden. And I was kind of saying, but why is it their garden?
You opened out the article by saying that kind of Cirencester Park is 1/3 of the public space in the Cotswolds. I was amazed by that. And also intriguing to kind of go into the kind of story of the Bathurst and the slave trade and all that. Because you're running kind of 2 or 3 arguments in tandem, the privatization of public space, and the open question is a £10 season ticket for kind of local residents. I mean, the Bathurst would argue that's cheap, and comparing with some of the prices in the Cotswold parks, it is cheap actually. But nonetheless, it's privatization of public space. 2, the class system, and I'm very struck by it. I mean, I know the Cotswolds quite well. It's where my family come from actually, and it's kind of riven with representations of that. And lastly, the slave trade, and I mean, you did pretty well to weave it all together in whatever it must have been, less than 1,000 words.
And something that we do, I think, and encourage our writers to, not just our student writers, which is to take the sometimes really small window on a really big dynamic, social dynamic or social problem. And for citizen writers, that can sometimes be the most accessible way in. Oh, here's the thing I know about, that I've researched, that I can understand because it's very close to me, geographically, emotionally, community-wise, whatever it might be. And that's the thing that you can then really develop into a fuller story. The universal and the global inside the very specific and the local. So there's something very Bylines about the way you described the genesis of the article there, Henry. There's Rose's article, Joel's piece, and Mysara's piece as well. And I'm not presuming that any of those might be a winner, but just even in their absence, it's good to recognise them and to consider them.
Well, I thought, just to go in reverse order, I mean, Joel's piece was drawing our attention to the kind of the profound problem next year, holding the World Cup in North America, with people moving from Mexico to the United States to Canada, given Donald Trump, and given the way that Donald Trump is positioning the United States, kind of anchoring it as an opportunity for American jobs, showcasing America first, undermining the whole kind of culture and purpose of the event. And I thought that it was a kind of I hadn't clocked that until I read his piece. Rose, I mean, I think that her kind of very mean, it was a book review plus, really, a book review called a book called Scattered that she'd read and impressed about the kind of the impact of being the impact of migrancy, moving from one country to another, its impact on you psychologically, particularly if you're young and kind of in early adulthood. And actually, she made her points again, particularly after the events of the last kind of 6-8 weeks. You've got this kind of not helpless, but actually powerless suffering people, in these asylum hotels, as they're in inverted commas, and outside them you've got a bunch of people who also feel kind of powerless, trying to exert power. The politicians, the politician and the party that's trying above any other to kind of profit politically from it. And I felt that actually the next phase of reporting on this has got to go there. I mean, we've got to get if we're going to win this argument, or we've got to kind of understand the fears of the without endorsing them, of the kind of some of the host population. And then having done that, it kind of, I think, enlarges one's sense of sympathy for the people kind of in the hotels. And then the last of the pieces has been vying in my mind with Jack's piece on the miners' strike to be the kind of winner, really. And in the absence of Mezara, I think it should be someone who's on the call who should get the prize rather than someone who's absent. So I want, with your permission, Ben, to give a joint prize in the graduates, because I think that although I said to Jack that I thought it could have, I think that he really is speaking to something which is, and it's a 40-year event. I didn't know that it was being celebrated in Yorkshire in the way that he described. I had no idea about the Manville Lake. I had no idea about the success of some attempts at regeneration and the failure of others. It's social reporting and it's economic reporting, and you brought it together well. It's there. Then there's I think your co-winners piece is this extraordinary story of this jail in Syria that was liberated in the when Assad fell. And again, I mean, these eyewitness accounts of actually what went on, the incarceration, people being incarcerated 100, 200, 300 feet underground with no light, the bodies that were brought to the surface, and in particular, an ex-prisoner who managed to get out, and then he was in exile in Holland, and the regime said, if you don't stop writing and protesting about what's going on in Syria, we're going to torture your family. You better come back to Syria. So he did, and his body was discovered at the bottom of this white prison. Kind of the description of the torture is just kind of, it's inconceivable, really. So I mean, again, I think that's a piece that I think Bylines should be honoured for running. And I thought it was, in a way, he allows the last prison, the red prison, they never found the entrance to. And so for the last few days of trying to kind of get people out, there were diminishing hopes that you'd actually even find a way into the damn prison. It was so deep underground, and you knew that people were incarcerated there, but you couldn't get to them. So the tyrannical kind of contemptibility of the Assad regime was kind of is there before your eyes. For the undergraduate prize, well, I mean, Rudy, I think you're the man. I mean, by a narrow margin again. I mean, you know, I don't like Johnny Rotten and what he subsequently became, but as you say, both on the call and in the piece, that actually that's now, and you really do well with his replacement, Frank Carter. You give us a real sense of what it was like to be there, and a real sense of what kind of punk rock was all about in the day, and the extraordinary sight of these kind of people my age kind of rocking and rolling in the mosh pit and the foul smell and all the rest of it. You make it live, and you support that with the video clips, which I thought was kind of innovative of you. And Ben's described how he went to Glasgow with his son, and it reminded me of those days too. And I think just actually for the kind of originality and vigor and creativity of the way you said about the piece, you deserve the prize.
At one point, we started this competition thinking there'd be one winner, and we've now got to the point where actually we've got 3 winners. So just to recap it, so for the undergraduate ones, Rudy, congratulations. You are the inaugural undergraduate Will Hutton Bylines Network Student Prize winner for writing about the Sex Pistols, which who knew that would happen? That's fantastic.
Thank you. Cheers.
You're very welcome, which is great. And then we have 2 winners sharing the prize in the postgraduate section. One, my Sarah Al-Khalaf is not with us today, can't get through from Syria, but I'm sure will be delighted to win the award. And the second one is Jack Evans for your piece, Jack, about 40 years on for the miners' strike. I don't know if there's anything. Congratulations, Jack. Is there anything you want to add?
Thank you very much. I didn't expect to win, if I'm being very honest. It's an honour to sort of have my work recognised and against some great pieces as well. I think all the tonight has proved that even if you're a student, you can still produce something that's such a good standard, and to maybe some ideas that don't really get discussed by many of the people. These are sort of stories you might not see every day on the front page of a newspaper or on social media, but if you give a chance from a student who's written it, you probably learn something new and read something very, very interesting.
Look at those different perspectives and you might find something new that's illuminating, and that is definitely a role that the Bylines Network is here to fill, to allow those voices to come through and those stories that otherwise might not be told to be heard. But also something that Will said about, I don't know if this is the right phrase, Will, to summarise it, but almost landing your punch. When you get to the end of that article, or when you pick the themes and threads that you're picking, pick the ones that land the punch and tell the story that really can shift thinking, and land that punch at the end. Really, build up to that thing that really sells the message, the point, the conclusion of the piece that you've researched and written. Which I think is fantastic advice for anyone that's involved in citizen journalism, and anyone that's writing out of their couple of thousand volunteers, which include many students and now ex-students, writing for us across our publications and for our editors. There are many stories to be told that are about important topics, big and small, that talk to the social conditions of our world as it stands. And my, do they need to be told now? If we're talking about asylum and the events of the summer that's just gone, my, do those stories need to be told now so that people can hear them and learn from them? A huge social agenda, a huge range of stuff, a fantastic range of writing, things to learn, and 3 in the end, fantastic winners.
I'm a good 50 years older than all of you. When you're my age, I'll have been pushed back daisies for some decades. I just hope that you keep the flame alive, guys, because the economics of journalism is never harder. But actually, it's important in some respects, never more important. And do what you do.
Yeah.
Actually, to be as good as you can be at it, and to not allow yourself to be and not allow your enthusiasm to be doused. Actually, it's really important that the people kind of coming through with your worldview, saying the things that you say. So thanks.
Thanks, everyone. And thanks for taking part. Next time, let's make this a short list, all of women, to compensate for all of the men this time. But just to pick up on that issue, thank you very much. All these articles are on those Bylines Network websites. Please go and have a look at them. And we'll see you all again soon.